It still works, Nate. The
All
button
right.
still works.
All right.
It's been a week and a day, but the button still works.
How is everyone doing out there?
Good question. And by the way, I'm now nervous about the button actually working. Cat videos, I'm on it, Mr. Wrong. I've been slow past few days, but I will come up with some cat videos for you. Don't worry. Just follow me on X, and you will have cat videos. I like to say cleansing your timeline. Do you do that, Nate?
No. I'm
You're a savage.
I'm just, yeah. I'm like right now. I got there's so much news in like one day. Like you can't keep up with all this stuff.
No.
It's incredible the amount of news that we consume in like 24 hours now. It's like a year's worth of news in like half a minute.
Yeah, well, we do America's Untold twice a week, 5:30 and on Tuesdays and Fridays. And honestly, we probably could do it every day.
Yeah, you could,
we
because
have like a stack of stories, and it's like, okay, well, you know what, we're done. It's 2 hours into the show. I think we're done. Whatever. It's insane.
But it's good because it's we have this kind of instant communication, and we're in this what they call attention seeking culture. So it just kind of is what it is. But with that being said, I think we have
gonna open with the main attention seeker out of Illinois, right?
Yeah. So we got Tiffany Henyard. So for those of you, let me change the thing. So for those of you who don't know, we've been following the Tiffany Henyard story for about 2-3 years now. Mayor, Illinois. Most of the people who are watching this know who Tiffany Henyard is, but she's moved to Georgia. She's trying to run for a political position down there, even no matter how rough things were up there. So I'm not going to go through it, Tiffany Henyard, but we do have a clip because she was ordered to come to a hearing to determine whether she was a legitimate candidate for the Fulton County Commissioner's office. And the requirements were that you have to live there for a year and so forth and so forth. But the contention came is that Henyard was mayor in Dalton, Illinois, which is 1,000 miles away. But then she also allegedly is claiming to have lived in Fulton County, Georgia at the same time to establish residency.
Which is a weird situation. Yeah. How do you do that? How do you register to vote there while you're mayor somewhere else?
Yes. And get paid and all that stuff, because you have to be the mayor, you have to be a resident of that place. And to be a voter in Georgia, you have to be a resident there. So that's the tension. So next week, not Monday coming up, but the next week, Monday on the 20th, there is a hearing that Tiffany Henyard is going to attend, and she's going to be there. So this video is what happened yesterday, because they had to push the hearing back because they said they didn't give her proper notice. So here's essentially what happened yesterday. Let me pull this up so everybody can see it.
Scheduled in Fulton County has now been postponed. Election officials failed to properly notify and invite a controversial county commission candidate at the center of all of this. Atlanta News First Adam Murphy joins us live outside of the Fulton County Government Center in downtown Atlanta. So, Adam, what is this all about?
Well, the issue centers around District 5 commission candidate Tiffany Henyard, and there was supposed to be a hearing for her today that revolves around whether or not she's lived in Fulton County long enough to be on the ballot. But we should also point out she's also a former Illinois mayor with a troubled political past.
We did not send that hearing notice properly.
The Fulton County Board of Registration and Elections admitted they made a mistake when they failed to invite commission candidate Tiffany Henyard to her own challenge hearing. County officials said they tried to email Henyard, but an apparent typo prevented the email from going through. The county also acknowledged
government efficiency at its best, huh? Send an email and tell her to come, and we typed the email wrong, and that's it.
Yes.
They even tried to call her.
We are required to give her notice of a hearing, and that's what we did not do.
The purpose of the hearing was to determine whether candidate Tiffany Henyard should be on the ballot for next month's primary. She is running as a Republican and previously served as a Democratic mayor of Dalton, Illinois.
But now, just so everybody understands, she's running as a Republican because she's running unopposed, or essentially automatically going to the general election, because there's no Republicans who win in that particular spot. Does that make sense? So it's only her versus the Democrat. She's hoping that if she gets it a one-on-one with the Democrats, she can pull it off.
Maybe, or like I've told you my theory that it's just another grift, and she could, like Curtis Sliwa has been accused of in New York, collect money and contributions, etc., for the campaign. It will win or lose. It's still, something in the pocket.
Yes, yeah, because you get something from it, and unfortunately, Curtis Sliwa, he wanted New York City to have Zoran, the communists, and they got it. So.
Lost her re-election bid in 2025. Now officials are trying to determine if she has lived in Fulton County long enough to run for office.
This is just showing the disconnect of the work.
Now, you hear about essentially how they were arguing about what they were arguing about, but we have some clips of, because they did have a meeting where you have public comment. So here are some of the public comments that came in. Even the person who reported Henyard to the commissioner say, like, hey, you guys are making a huge mistake here. So let me pull this up, because this is
which mistake? By not inviting her?
No, though, the mistake of allowing, number one, Henyard to run for the office, and number two, like why the Republican Party allow her to be qualified for the office, and number two, why is she even here? It's obviously she's not qualified. So here the public
carpetbagging. Yeah.
Yes. So here are a couple of the public comments that came in. This is the pink-haired woman.
Okay.
So in 2021, the sheriff said that it was a myth that if you want to commit a crime, come to Fulton County. This was a post that he posted back in 2021. And as Fulton County turns, and as we open up the Fulton Steam files, guess what we find off in there? All of you. Tiffany, how is that so that she is able to come to Fulton County that is becoming a hub for corruption, deception, manipulation, and be able to just sign in? Now, keep in mind, I feel like she was sent. I feel like it was something done by the Democratic Party. Yes, I do. That's just allegedly by me. That's my opinion. Because how is it that she's a sheriff in a whole nother state, come here able, showing the disconnect of the work and the leaders that we have here in Fulton County? Because she's registered still as a mayor in a whole nother state and able to come here, the hub of corruption in Fulton County, and register. And y'all are sitting up here confused. But then Julie.
Well, obviously, hold on. Obviously, just the actions of this trial or hearing or whatever prove how befuddled and confused they are when they don't even get it to the subject of the hearing. So it's like, gee, I wonder how somebody could slip through the cracks. And by the way, it's terrible to say because her presentation and her words are fine, but I'm so distracted by looking at her. It's like
the pink hair.
I have you know what it is? It's kind of like Sean Farish when he's doing the Trump impersonations. He's if you close your eyes, he sounds identical to Trump. I mean, every nuance. But you open them and it's like this dude with a baseball cap. She's kind of like that. It's like if I close my eyes, it's like, oh, okay. But I look at her, I'm just like those glasses, that hair. I'm just like, But anyway, sorry.
No, you're right. It's hard, but she's spitting truth, except for the whole sheriff thing.
Can't even get a seat at the table to do right by the people because of the corruption of the Democratic Party. Now, this is for our Black people because Harriet Tubman want to know, Malcolm X want to know, when is integrity going to step up to the plate? Because see, here in Georgia, Black people wasn't even supposed to be sitting in front of nobody.
That's your time,
Get it
ma'am.
together.
Thank you.
I always like the board. That's your time. We don't care. We gotta
Yeah.
we have to open this time to the public. Okay, next. The way they present that, it's not even a courtesy. That's your time. Thank you. You know, like any kind of sincere, but it's just like that's so bored. Like
she is calling them all out
next.
there.
Order up. Next. Order. You know, it's like number 123.
But she, you know, I give it to Henyard. Well, not Henyard, but she's like, you know, all you guys are in the what's it called, Fulton County Steen files or whatever.
Oh, the crowd. Yeah. Well,
here is another happy voter. Oops.
We have chain of custody issues. We have fraudulent voting from our records. It's not just a few here, a few there. It's tens and maybe even hundreds of thousands. Mm-hmm. And if you didn't want the ballots, why would Shay Alexander want to destroy them? Why would Nadine Williams say, I don't care about the ballot, them back, because you know that you're guilty. You know there's something there and you don't want the DOJ or the FBI to find it. Fulton County is the hub of fraud.
Here we go.
And now you're probably going to let Tiffany Henyard run for county commissioner, aren't you? That's what you're going to do, aren't you? She hasn't been here a year like the law
Time is up.
Says she should be.
She was a little convoluted. I think her presentation wasn't as strong as the last one. So
yeah, because you only got 60 seconds.
Presentation down.
Yeah, I think she could have done better, but this is the last person. So this is actually the person who called out Tiffany, who reported it for.
Okay, good.
The first one did.
Good evening. How are you? My name is Nurse Lashley. I'm actually a resident of Henry County, but I want to first start off by saying thank you for addressing the issue that I brought to your attention about Tiffany Henyard and how long she's been in the county and her not really being able, in my opinion, from what I reviewed, to run as commissioner. It is disheartening to hear everything that I hear your residents saying, because I do go to a lot of board meetings and listen, and this sounds very repetitive. So
pause for a second.
Yeah, I pray that
you must go to a lot of board meetings. You're so into board meetings that you're from another county and you're in this board. So the presentation's pretty good, but I'm like, is this your hobby? Are you like the board meeting attender? What's up here?
She just feels compelled to go and like, hold on, this Tiffany Henyard needs to be stopped.
There you go. All right, but Shine, thank you.
Guys, ensure that you don't let Tiffany Henyard come into this county and do what she did on the south side of Illinois, leaving it more than $200,000 plus in debt in the section of the PD. $3.1 million lawsuit that she caused from her neglect and much more. So with that goes to say, I want to say thank you so much for even this addressing this particular issue today, but it do dishearten me for what I hear. And I would like to add one more thing. I give out food right up the street at the church. And it's really disheartening to see all of these beautiful buildings, law enforcement and everything, and there's not really no services here. I'm spending my money from another county, at least $500 a week to feed 100 people a week, and I don't see any resources for them.
All right, so she told about the resources, but this is an elections meeting, so this is not the proper form for this, because this is the Board of Elections. So
right.
Do you think so? So essentially, what they're going to do is say, okay, we didn't give Tiffany enough notice. We're going to wait till we're going to give her notice, and then next week. So not next week, not the Monday coming up, but
probably
next week Monday.
I bet.
No, it's got to be this month. It's the 20th, April 20th. They're going, because the election's next month, so they have to figure this out before the election next month. So they put it off, and they're going to give her notice, but. It's the simple fact of the matter is that they haven't figured out whether she's an actual resident. They haven't figured out, was she in two places at once? They have to figure it out. So next hearing, they're going to go through all that process. So we'll see what happens there. But I think it's going to be interesting because Henyard is I think at best, at best, I don't know. Based on the facts that I have in front of me, I don't think she's qualifying, but we'll see. And I don't think she's going to win, but unless people are just that dumb, which I can't put it over because sometimes people are.
Well,
just
yeah. Well, where was she before? How'd that work? I mean, come on.
yeah.
Obviously,
Well, she won with
she's found it.
Yeah, she won with 86% of the vote, and she lost with 89% of the vote. So it's it comes both ways.
Which tells you there's at least 10% of the people who are really stupid.
That's so true. That's so true. So let's move on to the Diddy files, right? We got Diddy files to go through.
Yeah, I definitely want to talk about this because he is supposedly brought up a defense on appeal that I thought even when the charges were coming down because of the nature of the activities he was doing, and yes, I'm tap dancing around it. That seemed like a very viable defense. If you're hiring performers to do activities and filming them for a collection, does this become a certain type of movie with people doing things to each other that it comes with an X or a triple X in the front of them? It seems like that. Why didn't he have that defense to begin with? But go ahead and present this.
Well, I'm assuming, again, this is an assumption because I haven't seen those court records for the preliminary stuff for the criminal trial. But I'm assuming that if you had any type of competent lawyer, it's something you'd bring up. If you're paying people to perform sex acts, it's essentially, and it may have been dismissed, allowing them to then go to the Court of Appeals. After you get to dismiss, you preserve it for appeal, and then the Court of Appeals can get you the relief you're looking for. So essentially, for those of you who don't know, there was a big RICO case with Diddy, and RICO is racketeering the gift for the mob, saying that there was this criminal enterprise. This criminal enterprise essentially was a sex trafficking, drug trafficking ring, and all that stuff. Now, Diddy was acquitted of the most serious charges, but the two charges that he was found guilty of is essentially the Mann Act, bringing people, men or women, across state lines for the purpose of commercial sex work. In other words, prostitution. But Diddy's defense is now that, well, he wasn't bringing them across state lines for the purpose of prostitution. They were actors, and he was paying these actors to perform in sexual performances that are protected under the First Amendment. So this brings the question, what's the difference between pornography and prostitution? So Diddy and his team is saying the freak-offs were pornography, not prostitution. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm just trying to not get demonetized every time you use that word.
Oh, yeah, but it's
anyway, yes.
I'm thinking. So there's a test that the Supreme Court uses from 1973. I'm looking at my notes from Miller, California, and it's about the average person. It's a 3-part test, and previously, the court, essentially, just in a nutshell, the court asked whether an average person applying contemporary community standards, in other words, where you're at. So if you're in LA and the porn district, right, that there's a community standards that is acceptable there, versus if you're in the Bible Belt in a very Christian town, there's different standards with that. So they say, look at those local standards, and if the work taken as a whole appeals to your sexual, deviant interests, then whether the work depicts or describes something that's patently offensive, sexual conduct in excruciating, and especially defining it. I don't want to say the words, but just in a very bad way, or the work taken as a whole lacks serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value. Go ahead.
Okay, well, a couple of things in all that. First off, I've never heard anybody say that prawn is artistic. I guess there might be an occasional thing, but that's not usually what it's known for. It's usually known for encouraging physical activity outside of exercise, or certain specific kind of exercise that happens with people. Now, I'm curious, though, that initial ruling, when you said the prevailing community, how is that working when you have national distribution, especially with the internet and things like that? So yes, while these scenes or whatever are filmed in an area that it may be wide open with sex acts on film, the people in the other areas not so much, but the distribution's equal to all these areas. So I don't know. I'm just wondering
Well,
how that
I would,
holds up over time.
yeah, see, I would think you could, because based on this, you have to you have to satisfy all three of the elements. The whole, if it's patently offensive
Mhm.
for the contemporary community standards and taken as a whole, it lacks serious artistic, literary artistic. So I think generally, even if you fail on the first one, where the community standards are different, you can still be okay, because remember, the prosecution has to win all three. And generally nowadays, this is essentially impossible to overcome unless you can show a criminal intent to, I'm just filming it just for this, versus I'm filming it to shoot a movie or something like that. You'd have to.
Well, and also there's underage or criminal elements that would change the parameters.
Oh yeah,
too, right?
that yeah. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking
Yeah,
about
so-
just we have people agreeing to perform this content. Now, the court says the difference between prostitution and, well, prostitution and porno is that prostitution is considered conduct or action, and the
Mhm.
government can ban that, right? I'm paying for this, you're in exchange for this. I can ban that transaction, just like with illegal drugs. I can ban that transaction, that conduct. But when you talk about something that you put on film, like videography, it's considered a medium of expression, like a book, movie, and it's protected unless it fails the previous test, the Miller test. So essentially, if you have the difference between the two is, if I can pay the actors or pay whoever's going to be performing, I can bring them to a place. And if I have cameras set up and a production model set up, then it's going to be considered, that's going to be part of the medium of expression. That's the artistic value of it. If I don't have any cameras set up and it's just me and the person doing something for pay for the exchange, then that's not artistic. Who's artistic expression? Unless you have people sitting there watching it.
I was gonna say, isn't that
maybe
another level too of who's paying? I mean, and what I mean by that is, if a participant is paying, then that leans it more towards the prostitution side, right? Like John and Sally are making this film or doing whatever. Let's say John paid, Sally got paid, and they're being filmed. That's a little bit different than Pete is paying for John and Sally to be on film, and Pete is filming this material. So the two people actually involved in the activity are both getting paid as performers, which would actually be closer to what was happening to Diddy. Is that fair to say?
Yes, but I would say the difference with Diddy is that Diddy was essentially, I'm the producer. Even though I'm in these films, I'm a producer, I'm the money guy, I'm the guy supplying the money, supplying the actors, paying everybody to come out. And he's playing both roles, one as participant and one as performer. But I do think if you could make the argument that one of the because the performer can also be a producer too. So I think that's going to be the issue. And Diddy, I think his argument has some legs. And I'll say why. Number one, his argument is that, hey, everyone there to the performance was accepted the terms of the agreement, right? They're going to do this, right? We're paid for their services. We're treated fairly. Everybody, you came, you go. Nobody said they were, except for Cassie, obviously, Cassie. But even they have Cassie saying that she agreed to do this. Matter of fact, she paid sometimes to be a part of it.
And she repeated this too, which is a factor. So it wasn't just like a one-time thing. It's a chronic thing. So if you do it over and over and over and over, it does imply a degree of agreement.
Diddy also, his argument also is that this wasn't just people having sex. This was choreographed. He told them what to do, how to do it, right? He was directing them during the scenes on what exactly to do. You know, I want you to do this to, I want you to do this to him, that type of thing, whether they use condoms or not. So his argument does have some weight if you're talking about just the porn industry. Like, hey, this is a performance that I was a part of and that I was producing as both performer and thing. And so he's essentially saying all the freak offs, since they were filmed in this way, they were essentially like vlogs, like sex party vlogs.
Yeah.
And
there's a private collector. I mean, there are people out there who privately collect things, and I think that some performers sell their services. You know, like online people will sell custom videos or whatever, where they do a particular activity for somebody who pays to have them act out a particular scene.
Exactly. Well, here are the key differences. Number one, the primary intent, right? What's the intent of this whole thing? In the filming industry, is to provide visual arousal for the viewer, right? Somebody who's not me, but somebody who's watching it is going to be, now that could be the person who paid for it, right? Is watching it or whatever, or you can put it out. So you can film it just for your own private consumption, or you can do it for commercial purpose, right? Because art doesn't have to be shared to be art. It just has to be created. Versus the other way, where you know, the illegal one, it's to provide sexual gratification to the participant, to not for even both participants, but the one participant. I'm paying for sexual gratification. And obviously, when it comes to filming it, you're talking about now you have to overcome the First Amendment's free speech prohibition. This is free speech versus regulated conduct when you're talking about the illegal version of it. And there's an interesting case, California v. Freeman, because this was actually tested. And in California, they said, but this was in Georgia, some other states, but in California, they've made this distinction. That's why they have the place where all porn is, a lot of the porn is made, because of this ruling, essentially saying that if you film in as a production company behind it, then you are part of this industry, and this is inherently, and it's going to be just extremely hard to prosecute in a place like this. And again, Diddy's defense, I think, is extremely strong. It's a strong argument in terms of, he said, he points to all of the testimony that was elicited from the sex workers, Cassie, everybody who was there, you know, who said he was mad when we didn't perform well, when I couldn't perform, didn't bring me back. All of that, he's saying, this is how it works in the filming industry, right? When someone couldn't perform, I replaced them. When somebody couldn't, like, you know, and it was choreographed. Here it is on the film. They showed the film, right? Where I'm telling people what to do, how to do it, what I like, what I didn't like, you know, where's the lighting? You know, there was even lighting there. So that, I think that argument is now put, and it seems like the court was a little more sympathetic to it, because it's like, this is so close to the line. Do we protect Diddy's First Amendment rights by overturning this? Because if the court finds this to be First Amendment protected, then Diddy's convictions go away, because he wasn't promoting people for prostitution. He was paying actors to perform in movies. So this is huge, because if he wins, then his convictions are erased, and the prosecution essentially has nothing. What do you think about Diddy's argument? And do you think that
I really felt like that should have been the argument all along? Like I said earlier, it's like, if a case can be made for that, whether it's true or not, a case could be made, and it's very easy to see the parallels that they're performing, it's filming, he's paying, everybody's paid, you know, that's involved. It, you know, film over that time. You added even more elements with the directing, and that's true. When you're giving stage directions and guidance and things of that sort, that's already taking the sexuality out of it and turning it into a performative piece. Because of that, I think it's a very strong case. Plus, all the top charges got tossed, as you put it. So he was found not guilty, and now we're just quibbling over. Essentially, the argument was it prostitution, yes or no, right?
Yeah.
And now, he's arguing it's not, you know, human trafficking if it's a paid performance, and And people get paid performances and they fly around the world all the time for filming.
Yes, especially even doing these type of things. Someone said, so choreographer can beat the hell out of the girls when they went to leave. No,
charge him with assault.
They charged him with the sex trafficking for beating her and forcing her to do it. The jury didn't buy that argument. The jury said those people weren't trafficked for sex. Those people were willing participants. Cassie, the jury concluded as a factual matter, essentially that Cassie was a willing participant. And the only people the only issue there was that he paid the gigolos to travel across state lines to have sex with his girlfriend. So you're right. You can't just beat them because that's assault. That's all that. But the jury found that wasn't the case. She wasn't sex trafficked.
Did they charge specifically with assault and battery?
No, because on the federal levels they charge with sex. But
then that's a factor. So I was going to say, playing that out, that's absolutely true. Like, let's say there is a movie and John Smith has, two people there and then somebody's not performing and John beats them up. Well, it's still a free speech action. The assault is not part of that. The battery is not part of that. He can be charged for that and not charge the Mann Act or anything else. So it's just apples and oranges.
But right? I would also think it all depends on when, because again, it's highly contextualized. It depends on when it happens. So if I'm beating you to actually perform in the movie, that's trafficking, obviously, right? I'm physically putting physical violence for you to perform. But now let's say if you've performed and then I have an issue with you, then that's a different thing. I'm not beating you as to commit violence for you to perform. And that was the government's argument. The government's argument was that video where Cassie was being beaten by Diddy, that video showed that he was forcing her to do these acts against her will, which now doesn't make it a movie or anything like First Amendment protected. Mm-hmm. It makes it trafficking and forced sexual labor. So, but the jury didn't buy that argument. So if the jury doesn't buy that argument, then it allows Diddy to now go into the appeals court and says, well, listen, the judge said, I was being charged with all these things. The jury said none of those things were true. The only thing that was true is I took these guys from this state and brought them to this state to have sex with my girlfriend. So if the whole beating her and all that sex trafficking thing wasn't proven, then the things that were proven was the fact that I produced it, I directed it. They said I was choreographed. Matter of fact, they said a lot of times I wasn't even involved in the sexual stuff. I was filming other people doing it. So it's a novice argument, but I think it's a good argument.
Novice or novel?
Novel. I'm sorry. It's a novel argument. I'm sounding like Candace Owens. It's a novel argument, but I do think it has legs. I think it has. I think it has. Like, to be honest with you, if I'm a judge on the case, I'm like, they're right. He wasn't convicted on these other things, and I always like to do it this way. Let's say if this wasn't Diddy, this is just some guy who was paying models to go and filming it and putting it on Pornhub or something like that. Do you think that guy would be able to be prosecuted?
It depends. It might be easier because it wasn't a big name with a big legal team. So I mean, just trying to be realistic here.
But I'm saying even if he had this Diddy same legal team, but I'm saying even removing the Diddy stain of it, and
Diddy thing goes both ways. The fame can help and it can harm, at the same time, depending.
Yes. No, I agree totally 1000%. But I'm thinking as a judge, you're supposed to say his fame is supposed to be, is this principle of someone paying people to travel to Miami, for instance, because Miami is a big place where they hire girls and travel to Miami and have these particular things, or you're in LA and they bring people from across the country to LA to do these type of things. Just in the same way Diddy did. He's watching, he's doing this, he's directing. It's just, it would be hard to overcome the Miller test because it's like all these other people are doing it, but he's the only person that's convicted of the Mann Act. Then is it true all these other people should be convicted of the Mann Act? Because that's the way the court's got to think about it. It's got to think about how far does this extend? And I think at a point, if you are saying that anytime this happens, it's a violation of the Mann Act, then essentially the porn industry around the country could have a serious issue because they all bring people from different parts of the country to perform in their movies.
Sure. No, I agree. And by the way, I just want to clarify. I'm not a Diddy fan. I think he's a scumbag.
Oh yeah.
I mean, what he did was atrocious. I don't know how you can explain away that film and just say, oh, that's out of context. There was too much context in him dragging her around and harming her in that hotel video footage. I'm sorry. That incredibly hard to convince me that he is not an evil person. So I'm not going, oh wow, blah 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 blah. We're just talking about the ability to defend himself. And I'm going to draw a parallel to Bill Cosby, which I keep bringing up all the time. But Bill Cosby was released from prison. Was he released because he didn't do it? No, he was released because of mistakes that were made or the law at the time and a deal that didn't go through. And that's why he's walking around. And I kind of consider this similar, where the jury didn't convict on the things that had the teeth, and therefore they're irrelevant to the appeals court. They have to just look at, okay, this is what we can talk about within this small frame. We can't pull in all this stuff here and all this stuff here and all this noise. We can only say yes or no. Is this in fact an artistic endeavor, or could it be perceived as an artistic endeavor? Yes or no. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think I think this is a 50-50 toss up here. I think the judge could easily say, well, then if he was convicted on this other stuff, we would say this is not artistic, but he was specifically not convicted on that stuff. And the evidence we have in front of us shows that he was directing, blah, blah, blah. He himself didn't get paid. He paid other people, he himself, even though there may have been sexual gratification for himself, but it's just like, that is not a bar from you now paying all these other people and filming it and all that stuff, and even distributing it, because sometimes some of this stuff was distributed to other people. I think 50 Cent said he saw some of this stuff like that. Sure. So it wasn't like he was even keeping this. Now, I would say if he put it out commercially, that's a whole different issue. Then I think he's totally protected. But sure, I think the only leeway the government may have here is that Diddy didn't distribute it. So these were stuff for him, but that doesn't mean you can't make art for yourself. It's still art, right? Just because somebody else doesn't see it doesn't mean it's like I can make a movie and that movie would still be protected under the First Amendment, even if I don't show it to anybody else. So I think that's
there's precedent for it. So
yeah.
Or you're a patron. It's if you go hire somebody to draw a portrait of you and your family or whatever it is, and you put it in your house and nobody ever sees it except for people who visit you, that's just as much art as something that's at the Getty, right?
Correct. And the First Amendment treats it all the same. So the Bill Cosby is free because of an unlawful prosecution, because he and his lawyers
that's true.
That's what Eric exactly said. Yeah, that's exactly what he said. So let me see. Miss Comey Jr. did Epstein's first prosecution. What's it say? Nate.
Note, I think. Note the light prosecution for these serious crimes.
Yes. Sorry.
I don't know. I don't think. Look, I'm going to disagree with that, and I'm no fan of Ms. Comey at all. But this destroyed her. It wasn't long after this she was shown out of the office. This harmed her reputationally. This was seen as a horrible loss, and that doesn't help her as a prosecutor. It doesn't help her reputation. Her motivation would be to convict him to the highest degree possible, and she failed. So I don't really think it was a deliberate sabotage to help him or anything of that sort. I think that she tried, she failed, and it sucks for her.
Yeah. I think no matter what happened, I think they went for what they did. I disagree in the way they presented their case, because I think they presented it. Sometimes, especially as lawyers, you forget that you're talking to regular people, and I think Diddy's lawyers understood that. So that's why at the end, during closing arguments, Diddy's attorneys had the jury laughing, had the courtroom laughing, because it's a performance, and they're like, really, is he, and that, I think, and the prosecution went in not understanding that performance piece of it, trying to be very dry, and at the end of the day, the case was, I think, the evidence in case was pretty easy against Diddy to understand. I just don't think the the prosecution explained it well enough to say to the jury to have them convict. But again, that's just my own thing. So do you think the judges seemed at least one of the judges seemed very, very, very sympathetic to Diddy's argument?
I think that with the precedents and everything, he'll probably prevail.
Do you think he'll prevail?
Well, especially because he's already served so much damn time. What are you going to get? Like he's trying to get overturned, right? But he's already been locked up for what, 2 years, 3 years, something like that.
How
So,
long it is.
and if you look at the actual crimes of which he was convicted, the sentence he'd be serving, he'd probably be out now already if it was just a normal person doing it. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, but that there is, because the reason why, because generally it would be like maybe a year in jail, but
Right.
even probation. But the reason why he got so much time is because, and this is another argument they made too, the judge can take into account in sentencing even acquitted conduct. So the fact that he beat Cassie up during that hotel, that freak off, right?
Mhm.
That he may have been not charged for that, but the judge can use that and say, this violence is part, and that's why the judge said, we're going to give you this much time versus something we generally give someone. Because don't forget, he's a first-time offender. He's never been charged with anything before. No, it's
Right.
And you're talking about just transporting prostitutes across straight lines. That's not going to get you 5 years.
No, that's what I'm
years in
saying.
jail, so.
A normal defendant would already be out. So what I'm saying is that it's kind of a weird one, but if they just say, yeah, go give it to him, he'll already have served pretty much all the time anybody would have expected for the crimes he was convicted. If he was convicted on the heavier charges, that would be another thing. But remember, when the main charges were overturned, the thought at the time was that he could walk out as soon as today or just in a couple of weeks or something, because of the time he had served. So I feel like the appeals court's kind of in a spot where they could say, well, he's already served the time. The precedent would be a giant problem. We would have a flood of cases coming in potentially on this. And would this actually hold up going all the way to the Supreme Court? And I'm not the lawyer, but I don't feel like it would actually hold up. I feel like his case is strong on this.
Yeah, I think he has a good argument, but again, there's discretion involved,
Of course.
whether the factual circumstances. But I would just say this: I think he has a shot. How good that shot is, who knows? Because it's a 3-judge panel, we'll see. I'm thinking they're probably going to reduce the sentence, because he's also asking for that too, essentially time served. Because I kind of think that's
Okay,
where
so
you're, if they're going to,
if
they keep this conviction, or if they don't keep this conviction and say it's a First Amendment issue, then I think but I do think you're going to have some changes to it, because essentially he's got a RICO conviction for not committing a RICO, not being convicted of any of the more serious charges.
You know what? It's kind of like OJ. Remember when OJ stole, broke and got his own memorabilia in Las Vegas?
Yes.
And wound up serving 12 years. It's like he was serving a murder sentence on another crime because he squeaked by on the other crime. And I kind of feel like that's sort of what's happening with Diddy right now. And again, I'm okay with it in a lot. My personal nature is kind of like, yeah, he's a scumbag. Good. But for the overall law, like, what if it's somebody else who didn't drag her across the hotel room and stuff like that? Then I might feel completely differently.
Yeah, definitely. But so that's the Diddy update. I'm not sure if he's going to get out of it, but it's going to be interesting. So do we move to the Iran MAGA splinter or what?
Why not? You say Iran MAGA splinter. It's been a MAGA bloodbath for a while. I mean, there's been a lot of drama in the quote MAGA world now. But pre-Iran, Iran is just starting to just bring things to a head, and people are taking extreme positions. But I would argue that the death of Charlie Kirk started all this, in my opinion.
Because he was you think he was like the glue that was kind of holding everything together?
I think he really was, and I did not know that until he died. I think that, that's sort of the way, martyrs work or something. And I think he legitimately is a martyr. Sometimes you don't know exactly how important they were until they're taken out of the picture.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I think I'm not too sure about how Charlie, because I think if Charlie Kirk was alive, would Trump had gone into Iran?
Very possibly, but that's not what we're talking about. I'm
No,
talking about that the splinters actually were happening at that point. When he died, you had Candace Owens making hay
Oh, yeah, she's
on a
been crazy,
conspiracy.
yeah.
No, but that dragged in Nick Fuentes, that dragged in Tucker Carlson, that dragged
Yeah.
in big time Megyn Kelly.
Yeah.
Because remember, people are saying, whoa, you're letting her say all this. Are you going to disavow it? And da da da.
And then she didn't do it. Yeah.
And she didn't. And so all these have really been coming off of that timeline. Now, I'm not going to say that there wasn't some drama before when Iran was bombed last summer. There was some drama, but it just quickly dissipated. It wasn't. It wasn't this fever pitch. I feel like the Charlie Kirk assassination really started this down that path.
Yeah, I think that could have been one of the buildup factors, but I think the true factor that started this whole is NATO. I mean, it's what happened in Iran and what happened, and them blaming essentially Israel, because that's what they're saying. They're saying that Israel has taken the Trump's brain and is forcing him to do this. So it all goes back to Israel.
It's always Israel.
Here is the yes, it is always Israel, unfortunately. But
I mean, you know what? Hold on. I wonder when Artemis was up there behind the moon, if they didn't see a flag of Israel planted on the dark side.
Oh, it's we laugh, but it's not funny because they do blame Israel for everything. But here is the let's share this one instead. So here is Abby. So here is what's been going on. I found this clip from CNN, but it just kind of goes over the stuff before they get into the arguments. But so here is what's going on.
For months now, but the war with Iran appears to be the tipping point for many of them.
It is vile on every level. It begins with a promise to use the U.S. military, our military, to destroy civilian infrastructure in another country, which is to say to commit a war crime, a moral crime against the people of the country, whose welfare, by the way, was one of the reasons we supposedly went into this war in the first place. There will be nothing like it. Open the effing straight. How dare you speak that way on Easter morning to the country? Who do you think you are?
So Tucker went hard, and we haven't even heard about the whole, because remember that was before Trump posted the whole "we will destroy the civilization and many will die tonight," that type of thing. So Tucker was already upset about the bombing of infrastructure.
Tucker's been upset for months. Tucker's been upset for since he got his property in Qatar. I mean, Tucker's been very upset for a while. Tucker has guests on who are reformulating World War II, for God's sake, dude. Tucker has been down a path for literally since before Charlie Kirk passed away and everything else. He was on a path that the 2024 election, there was a question about Trump maybe distancing himself from Tucker a little bit because
I remember that.
Tucker, he's been dancing around with some concepts now for a while.
Well, here is Trump's response to Tucker.
In response, Trump called Carlson a low IQ person, and Trump claimed that Carlson calls him all the time, but Trump refuses to answer, adding, quote, I like dealing with smart people, not fools. But Carlson is not the only one who's souring on this war. Matt Walsh says that Trump's second term has spent too much time on foreign adventures and that it's time to turn the attention back home. Marjorie Taylor Greene called Trump's post evil and madness and said that it was time to invoke the 25th Amendment. Alex Jones apparently agrees.
How do we 25th Amendment is asked?
The problem is to get the 25th Amendment is harder than impeachment. You have to get 2/3 of the House and 2/3 of the Senate.
So what do we do?
tackle Trump and pretend, let him pretend he's president and publicly report that he's going through a health issue and Vance take over.
And if I was the Democrats, I'd stop poking Trump and messing with him. That only makes it worse. Like, you guys need to watch out. This isn't a guy acting like he's crazy. This is real.
Now, by no means am I suggesting that any of these people are authorities on much.
Now, obviously, Abby Phillips and the Democrats are loving this.
Oh God, yes. I mean, they've got the popcorn bags out and the marshmallows on the side. Oh yeah.
Yeah, but I think I kind of feel torn between this because I think this was long coming. Well, let's start with Candace Owens. So let's start with Candace Owens because I think that's the safe part to go. Candace Owens has been going after Trump, but Trump hasn't been going after her. The last thing he said was the whole thing about what did he say about her? About the Erica Kirk should sue her, which I'm assuming he's.
That was part of the whole thing. Now, what you're playing right now, we just better qualify to people because this is Nathan Livingstone, who does a phenomenal job of collecting clips and can be very effective. Andrew Tate hates his guts and has sued him up and down, but this is what Nathan does. I've had him on, I've interviewed him, and he collects clips of different people. He is very critical of Tucker. He's very critical of Candace Owens. This is not a loving collection of clips for Candace Owens, just so people understand where we're going with it and what we're sharing.
Now, why I'm playing this is because Trump called Candace a dummy. He said that she was low IQ. He's made it very clear how he feels about Candace Owens. So I said, and what was the other thing?
Well, there were many people who agree with his viewpoint on Candace Owens. There's even an X account. It is, I believe, Candace Owens learning to read.
Yes.
So,
let me get exactly what he said about Candace. So about Candace, I actually pulled it out. So I'm gonna pull it. So for Candace, he says particularly, he calls her crazy, criticizes her for claiming the First Lady of France, Brigitte Macron, is a man, says she's going to lose that lawsuit big, and then as the ultimate burn, says that the First Lady of France, Brigitte Macron, who she's saying is a man, is more beautiful, far more beautiful than Candace Owens.
Not even close.
And obviously says that she's dumb and mentally unwell. So now this clip is supposed to be in support of Trump saying that Candace is truly a dummy and an idiot and doesn't know what the hell she's talking about. And here are some clips to essentially prove it. So here it is.
Instagram, you see she has millions of followers and you think, okay, this is an illiterate person. Kind of read books. I'm just fascinated with learning real history because I think that truth is kind of, what actually has happened, the events of our world is obviously, as the expression goes, way stranger in fiction. To do it again posthumously, Charlie Kirk, the founder of TPUSA, will be posthumously honored a posthumous award. They decided posthumously, cordially accepted those posthumous terms. SCIF, which stands for a sensitive, compartmented, if you can't compartmentalize, and a CEO and a chairman has to compartmentalize. The IDF even dropped napalm 12.5 miles off the coast of the Sinai Peninsula. Is that correct when you arrive into the Sinai Peninsula?
Sinai.
Literate person in Portland, Oregon. The Hamptons debacle came up. Hamptons, okay? Remember that whole debacle? We knew a kerfluffle happened as this dress kerfluffle causes this whole race kerfluffle. Ways you can honor Charlie. Stop telling us that it has to always be Miss Macabre. Like,
what the hell's Macabre?
Macabre.
A retired Green Beret.
Green Beret.
Allegedly a heart attack. Normal passion, not this like chat GBT. At last I checked, everybody uses the terminology blitz, blitzkrieg. Everybody uses the term blitzkrieg.
But it's not like she's saying it once. She's saying it over.
No, like architecture to her arguments. It's so bad, Nate, that later on you saw her say something, and if you played the video back, you heard her mute it in the middle of her word. So they're trying to catch it later, but keep playing.
So I called it Blitzkrieg Week. You can't even say blitz means lightning. Krieg means war. Even and the NFL football team say Blitzkrieg. Like, God, like, no, he just liked the architecture. Smells and the Bells, he loved the architecture. It was about the architecture. Like, yeah, no, like he loved the architecture. I think this
She really doesn't know it. She really doesn't say it. She doesn't know. Nobody's just told her, like, hey, this
may have been about more than the architecture. Jewish people were in control of the slave trade. They've buried a lot of it. Buried the Charlie Kirk story.
Hold on, pause. Buried, I think, is a regional accent type of thing. Some people might say it. It's, odd and it's funny, but my favorite is wait till you see her say bureau. That's another good one. So I understand to a degree. If I've been guilty of this too, and I bet you have, Nate. Like, if you've never heard a word pronounced, you only have seen the word while reading, you might mutilate the word. If she was charitable to other people, I wouldn't laugh at this nearly as hard. She's not charitable to anybody and acts smarter than everybody. So that's the reason why. But anyway, continue, please. This is fun.
What about his burial? How come we haven't seen anything about his burial? Alex Jones was just burying himself, and Alex Jones jumped into the fray. Mock me and Tucker Carlson. It's always got to be Tucker Carlson, camera Owens.
She
that I love.
Her own name. That's her name.
Yes.
Hold on. Was she mocking the person because he said?
I think she's mocking somebody who says her name wrong, but it still comes off stupid as can be.
And Tucker Carlson. It's always got to be Tucker Carlson, camera Owens, and of course, the world is quite literally a stage. By the way, I always wonder where that expression comes from. Can you look that up, Skylar? The world is a stage. Where is that from?
Shakespeare. I'll help you out.
I actually don't know where that's from originally. That would be interesting to see. Totally like insane Alice in Wonderland. And then like all of a sudden there's like a Cheshire cat who's like smoking.
Night by Elie Wiesel.
Night by Eli Weitzel. Mentioning Elie Wiesel. Elie Wiesel. Oh, it's Shakespearean. All the world's a stage. Interesting. Very interesting.
Do you have a favorite book?
I read a lot. I don't know if I have a favorite book.
That's fair.
Nothing favorite? All right, I'll take it.
Because that's what she is. She's illiterate.
Wow. So that was pretty brutal.
There's more. Like I said, there's an entire X account that just is this. Because it's every day. Now they're trying to stop it, as I said, by editing and muting while she's talking, which is actually kind of a statement in of itself. It's like, instead of working on words, and I encourage everybody, like there was a clip that went by, I don't know if you saw it on X or whatever, where there was I think he was a rapper or something, but he was reading and he found a word and he looked it up and he's sitting there going da-da and then saying the word out loud. And it's people were making fun of him. I'm like, what's wrong with you? I encourage, if you don't know how to say something, you look it up. That's freaking awesome. You should never make fun of anybody who is trying to improve their language. But if you have people just edit behind to clean things up, well, that's not, you're not trying to improve yourself or anything else.
Oh yeah. Candace gaffes more than Joe Biden. And we all know Biden was a dementia patient. Oof. She does have a lot of gaps, but that's why Trump is calling her dumb. And I think she has a real chance of. Well, I'm assuming when Turning Point USA eventually slams her with the lawsuit she's going to be in, I'm assuming they're just letting her just pile it on her because there's no way that they can't be waiting to file this lawsuit where you have a non-disparagement agreement because the whole show now is just attacking Turning Point. She has a six-part series attacking Turning Point USA. So,
well, we're waiting for the Macron case to go through too. So, if she's guilty of that, then you can show a pattern of behavior that would help your case even more, right? If she loses that, then you'd be like, okay, so here we go. She was already doing this at the time and defending it, which she lost, by the way. So the pattern of behavior is she smears people. Here's the smear case one. Now she's smearing even with the disparity. Anyway, that's it.
But just to be clear, that wouldn't be used for the liability phase. That would be used for, like, let's say when they're trying to figure out how much she has to pay.
Okay,
then you can use those old things. Here's Megyn Kelly. So now Trump obviously moved on to Megyn Kelly. Here she is, and Trump says about Megyn Kelly. I just want to pull it up. So we did. So by Megyn Kelly, he brings up the fact that she did the only Rosie O'Donnell debate question. Calls her nasty, says it's about hostile, and obviously she's a grifter for clicks and views and everything like that. And like we mentioned earlier, Megyn Kelly has been on both sides of every issue.
Oh, yeah.
The trans debate, remember, she was for it before she became against it. Like every single issue, she was on one side and she's on the other side. And now, obviously, she's become more conservative. But
to be fair, well, you know, everybody's like, well, you still watched her and enjoyed her. And it's like, yeah, you know what?
Yeah.
I have enjoyed Megyn Kelly's presentations. She's a very talented reporter, not reporter, but presenter, very talented. But it was hard to know where she was or wasn't, because when she was working for Fox, obviously she's probably going to kind of carry the company line a little bit. And I understand that to a degree. Then when she went to NBC, she started to sound like people at NBC, and that was a trans thing. The question became, okay, so then she went on her own. That's fine. What was she doing? Well, to start with, when she went on her own in like 2020, she was kind of a cultural person. She didn't really tread too hard into the politics. It's when Trump was running again in 2024 and was starting to get some legs in his campaign, she jumped in and started to become more and more and more political, being fully for Trump at the time. And that's where you start to see, okay, she's chasing potentially whatever is going to work for her. And I'll be honest, I made the joke about Israel and the moon and what's on it, etc. Well, right now, if I want to make money, I would start laying into Israel every 10 minutes, okay? Because that has been the good rift dollars, in my opinion. And I could tell you from experience, we have been suffering by not going on the anti-Israel narrative and everything else, and being attacked left and right. So jumping on the Tucker Carlson bandwagon seemed like a profitability, and then not going against Candace Owens when Candace Owens was going against a widow of somebody who was assassinated. Well, I'm not sure where that was. That did seem calculated. So I think that's where we're going with a lot of this. And Megyn, I feel, is influenced by what is going to be the better paying narrative.
But I think they all are. I think Alex Jones, Megyn Kelly,
Sure,
and Candace Owens are fair weather, right? Like, for instance, I get attacked by the chat here and the chat in the conservative all the time because I stand on the principles I stand on, right? I just like crazy. If you're crazy, left, right, I don't care, right? And when you stand on principles, sometimes you're going to run up against the hedge where we're going to have a backlash between you and the audience.
Yeah,
so
sucks.
I'm very cautious of people who never argue with their audience, who their audience is always, we're with you, we're with you, we're with you. Because a healthy relationship, if someone disagrees with you all the time and you agree with them every single time and everything they're saying, it's more cult-like than having a real healthy relationship. Because in there are no two people exactly the same. And what I'm saying here is that I think Megyn Kelly, by her changes in positions, shows that she's playing the game instead of having a moral floor. And I think Candace Owens is the same thing. Charlie Kirk's alive. She's all in everywhere. She's got a contract with them. She's making
hers
money
goes
with them.
all the way
And
back.
then
Though.
she
Candace goes
she's the
way
most
back.
extreme portion of it. But then I think in jest, Alex Jones and Barnes, I think, are extremely principled. And a lot of people who are hating them now are saying, well, we hate what he's saying, we hate, but think about it. He's still saying it because he doesn't care the backlash. He's like, I actually believe this. And even though I think he's wrong, I do agree, and I appreciate someone having a principled position and keeping to that position. But you have to convince them why they're wrong. So in that instance, I am more sympathetic. But it's strange to hear someone who you supported for a decade now, right? Over almost a decade of support for Trump. He says something you don't like, and you go from either having some pause. Like I think you said this a lot. Let's give this time and see where this is really going.
I say it all the time, and
Yeah,
people are
versus-
saying I'm
versus just coming to
cheerleading.
the
It's like,
conclusion.
no, I'm
Yeah,
saying
versus
let's
coming
see.
to the conclusion he's a maniac, lunatic. So I think, and I think that's where Trump has the issue, and I think that's why he's lashing out. Because if you think about it, look at Tim Pool's response to all this. Tim Pool is obviously against the war in Iran. He's
Tim Pool's
obviously
trolling. He's having fun with this.
no, but I'm saying, like, when you listen to his show, he's not for the war, but his objections are grounded in, hey, this is the reason why I'm objecting to it. Versus Trump's a maniac. Trump needs to be, there needs to be this cool and all this other stuff. So I think his biggest issue is that now, though the extreme right-wing lunacy of the Candace Owens and Alex Jones have now been thrown back into his face. And when you read his post, I actually don't see where he's making things up, right? His post is pretty clean. I like in that post. Are there any lies that you think Trump is making in his initial post?
It's very long. No, I don't. I think that he kind of bitch slapped everybody. If I really look at it, and to be fair, he didn't just come out, fickly. Yeah, but go and put it up on the screen so that way we can, talk about that. I don't think he came out, like overly sensitive or too early. It was like all of these people have been saying crap about Trump now for a while. It's been building and building and building. And, for example, Candace Owens, I'm going to keep going back to her because she's the, kind of prime grifter of the lot.
Yeah, she is a prime. Yeah, definitely.
The latest person who assassinated Charlie Kirk was, behind it was Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And Donald Trump was at the guy's memorial. And
Donald
it
Trump
is a little
killed Charlie Kirk, which is crazy, which is insane. He was saying it out loud.
Yeah, to Charlie Kirk, let him sacrifice me. and she's comparing Donald Trump to the Ayatollah, to the president of Iran or whoever it was that was talking. It's like, what? Talking about how the Iranian leader is so principled by lining up and having people lining up to be human shields versus Donald Trump who kills Charlie. I'm like, are you sick? Well, no, we know that answer. Sorry. But and that was just in the latest of a long line. So Trump, this incoming has been going on for a while, with them, and they're just this little like little terriers nipping at his heels all the time. And he even threw Marjorie Taylor Greene into the bottom of this too. Remember?
Yeah.
And she's out there snaking 25th Amendment and everything.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
They're literally saying the same thing that was being said about Biden.
Yeah, exactly. It's just now about Trump. This was Biden is too old. And to be fair, they're pretty close to the same age, and now they're saying the same thing.
Right.
But let's fact check what Trump actually wrote.
Okay,
I know why Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, Candace Owens, and Alex Jones have all been fighting me for years, especially by the fact that they think it is wonderful for Iran, the number one state sponsor of terror, to have a nuclear weapon. So he's obviously which is not true. They don't believe that Iran should have nuclear weapons.
Well, I don't know. I think that he's saying, in essence, their actions are saying this. When Candace Owens is comparing leaders in Iran who are, promoting the human shields to the president of the United States, what are you talking about? And then as far as the nuclear weapon question, some of them, I'd have to find the exact quotes, but there is an element who says, why can't Iran have a nuclear weapon? They are fine with that. They're saying Iran wants to have a nuclear weapon because they want to be like North Korea. They want to be left alone. They want to be able to defend themselves. And if Israel can have it and other countries can have it, why can't they have it? Now, I don't agree with this, but absolutely that mindset is out there that why not have a nuclear weapon there? And then there's also a denial about whether they're a sponsor of terror by a lot of those folks.
Which they are. I think that's just I think they are. But I think anybody saying they're not sponsoring terrorism, they are. But it's funny because North Korea they kind of secretly made their nukes, and it was under a different president. And everybody was saying that. Why did you let them get to that point? Pakistan, for instance, they secretly had a nuclear program we didn't know anything about until they blew up the bomb, and we're like, oh my God, Pakistan has a bomb now. So that was, and then the sanctions came with that. So I think,
but that's part of why this happened.
That's
going back to North Korea.
Mm-hmm.
If you think if you look into the history, and Rubio actually finally started to enlighten people a little, and it was a case of North Korea had the ballistic armaments already, and they had a lot of them, and they're right across the border. We have troops right there, and we have South Korea, and we knew that if we were to do anything to North Korea at all, like bomb any facility or whatever, they would throw all their ballistics at South Korea, who was right across the border, and they would harm, potentially millions of people, but at least many, many thousands and thousands and thousands of the people. And so they hesitated, which allowed North Korea the time to get the nuclear weapons. Iran was using the same playbook. They've been collecting armament after armament after armament. This is not nuclear, just ballistic, building up these giant stockpiles of thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of missiles with a threat, which they've already proven out they will shoot every neighbor around them and everything else. So while you're trying to tamp things down, it's allowing them to collect everything under. So that is part of the reason they acted. There would be a certain tipping point where it would just be too difficult to dislodge them.
Yes.
And a lot of people don't want to talk about that.
Super chat from Wellesley. Was it Wellesley, right?
Wellesley 72, Wellesley. The college, I think.
Yes. Engagement with audiences is key, even though we can be crazy. The emotional maturity is what makes it possible. Nate and Eric, keep it up. Oh, thank you.
That's a great point, but there's also audience capture, and we could talk about that. One of my favorites.
Yeah. Well, let's go on with what shit we got through the first sentence. This is one of the longest paragraphs in the history of the world.
Oh yeah.
This is no, he doesn't like paragraphs, but it's because they have one thing in common: low IQ. So they're stupid people. They know it. Their families know it. It's just vicious. Their families know. He can say it like a comedian. Their families know it, and everyone else knows it too. Look at their past. Look at their records. So now he's gonna go into the record, right? They don't have what it takes. They never did. They're all they've all been thrown off television, lost their shows, and aren't even invited on TV because nobody cares about them. They're nut jobs, troublemakers, and will say anything necessary for some free, cheap publicity. I think that encapsulates, like he's honestly talking about Candace, obviously. That
not just Candace, but when was Megyn Kelly last a guest on Fox or NBC?
That's true.
Now, I don't know if they've invited her and she's turned them down,
Alex,
but haven't seen her. Alex Jones, damn sure is not there.
But let's be honest too. When's the last time you saw Joe Rogan on one of those shows being interviewed?
Well, we know Joe Rogan turns them down. That's why I said I don't know if he was she was asked or not. But Joe Rogan's being critical. He's not going full tilt though.
Yeah.
Everybody he's targeting right now, I think, is saying 25th Amendment.
Yes. I think that's what it is, because they're saying he's crazy. So he's saying, so this is him defending himself against that. And we'll say anything that serves some free, cheap publicity. Now they think they got some clicks because they have a third-rate podcast, but nobody's talking about them. And their views are the opposite of MAGA. Or I wouldn't have won the presidential election on a landslide, which fair. MAGA agrees with me. CNN did have that poll where 100% of people.
That poll is the first 100% I've ever seen, and I will admit that that's a kind of a questionable number. Now, obviously it depends on who you're asking, and if you hit the right crowd, it's possible. But I'm sure that 100% is probably not accurate. I would say it's probably 85 to 90.
But it all depends on what questions you ask and in the way you ask it, right? So I think if you ask just the war question first, then people will and then you ask the MAGA question second. But then if you ask the MAGA question, then you have the war question, people will tell you how their views don't work. Then if you ask the MAGA question, you'll get a different response than if you do it reverse. Ask the MAGA question first, then the war question, right? So and I'm thinking that's what could have happened here, where CNN asked the question in a way where it almost forced you to say, if I'm MAGA, I gotta agree with it, versus if I'm MAGA, I'm not gonna agree with it. But sure. I'll also throw out there too, when Trump doesn't like the poll, they're fake polls. When he likes the polls, he cites them. So
well, that's everybody.
That's a little, yeah. It's just like you said, you can't really take that poll with any hand of salt. Not handing failing fools like Tucker Carlson, who couldn't even finish college. I didn't even know he was a college dropout. He was a broken man. Yeah, he's just hitting them with the hits. He was a broken man when he got fired from Fox, even though he's personally wealthy, right? Tucker Carlson.
Well, that's all in question. You know, a lot of this, and I'm just going to go because on America's Untold Stories, we did a full show on his father, Dick Carlson. And if you look at the Tucker change, I feel it has happened since his father passed away. His father is a very, quote, pro-Zion, or was a pro-Zionist person. His father also was CIA, or he was, he was the head of the Voice of America, tied in with the CIA, tied to CIA, USAID. I mean, his father is very, 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 very into the, quote, deep state. Tucker's brother's name is Buckley. Well, he was named after William F. Buckley. Again, is a spooky guy. So there is a lot of that. But anyway, circling back around, I think it's when his father died, you saw a lot of changes with Tucker and his narrative. He started to invite a lot of odd people on, and a lot of different perspectives. It was like, what? Also, Tucker, keep in mind, has worked for every network. I think he's one of the few people he has worked for,
too.
And MSNBC.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been through all of these news networks until now. Literally, he is on his own. I don't see anybody hiring Tucker, period. So that's kind of true, right? When he says he's done.
Well, because of Tucker too, Fox did have to pay like almost $1 billion,
$785 million or something. Yeah, the Dominion suit and Tucker's text at the time
were the killers.
Well, they said how much they hated Trump in his private text.
But in those text messages, they also showed how they knew the information was false, said it anyway. That's why, Fox, that's why not whatever the voting company got. They got $700 million from Fox. Yeah, Dominion. Yeah. So because one thing I think this does expose is that, remember, people, Tucker and the people at Fox knew what they were saying was false lies, and they said it anyway. That's why you pay so much money to Dominion. Iran has been attacking Americans by proxy since the 1980s. Correct.
True.
This conflict is not new. Correct. Letting a country led by religious zealots having a nuke is foolish. Well, I would say Pakistan, and I would say also,
well, you
have the North Korea, so there's a lot of, they're not the only ones with nukes. We're not the only ones with nukes. And what about Russia, for instance, who's really unstable and just asking for trouble?
Well, there were arguments, everybody you just mentioned, like Russia, during the Cuban Missile Crisis, etc., there were some generals post World War II that were more than willing to drop a couple nukes on Russia to shut them down immediately before they grew out of hand. Now, obviously, that would be a horrible, horrible thing, but it's not like people are saying, yeah, what the hell? Let them have nukes, no problem. We have people executed for it. Anybody? I mean, Rosenberg's.
No, I'm not saying. I'm not.
It's like,
but I'm not saying. I'm not saying it's right. I wish we would have only had nukes. But the fact of the matter is the nuke argument, as I think, is getting less and less credible than before. And I think it's completely credible. I'm not saying it's not. I'm less credible. They're saying, well, I believe it's getting less. It's gotten less credibility because One, we had the first campaign. We said all their nuclear stuff was obliterated. They couldn't do it.
Oh,
And now we have the second campaign, which again is saying that, well, when we said it was obliterated, they couldn't make it. Now we're saying that they can make it and we got to go in and get it. And now they've even admitted that they can't stop, to go in there and get the nuclear materials that they have that's supposed to be 60% enriched or whatever. You need boots on the ground. So now we're willing to put those assets on the ground. So, but again, Trump is a wild card, so I don't know. He may be willing to put those assets on the ground to get that. But until you actually get that material, then the threat is still always going to be there. So now do you just do this extended war? Like what's the end game here? And right now it seems like the end game is kind of even money too. But let me continue reading on this. We'll say anything that's necessary for. Oh yeah, so we are here, Third Rate Podcast. Nobody's talking about them, and their views are opposite the matter. I would have wanted. So we said all that, and we were doing Tucker, right? We were doing the Tucker thing. Here it is, failing, and he has never been the same. Sorry, he's a college dropout. Has never been the same. Perhaps he should see a good psychiatrist or Megyn Kelly. So now we've gotten his gripes against Tucker.
There's another theory about Tucker. He said psychiatrist and stuff. My show partner Mark thinks that Tucker's an addict and alcoholic, and he's acting in an erratic manner that some addicts do as well. As a possibility. I'm just throwing that as another alternative that he could be deep in addiction.
But I don't know. I would just need something a little bit more.
Well, he's admitted he's an addict.
He does.
That
All right, yeah, that would
his demon scratching him in the middle of the night when he's sleeping with dogs.
I don't want to be very careful not to abuse. I'm not sure, but if he said it, then that's that. So then we got Megyn Kelly, who nastily asked me the famous now only Rosie question, or crazy Candace Owens. So that's really only said about this, or crazy Candace, who accuses the highly respected First Lady of France of being a man when she is not, and will hopefully win lots of money in the ongoing lawsuit. Actually, to me, the First Lady of France is far more beautiful than Candace. In fact, it's not even close.
Now that right there, I think that was the dagger.
That's a dig, yeah.
I mean, that was going straight after a woman, straight after her looks, and however you feel about Candace Owens, if you think that she is not a touch narcissistic, which by the way, Trump is narcissistic too, if you think that doesn't dig at her, I think you're crazy, and you're probably watching the wrong show. I'm just saying, that's a brutal.
Yeah,
brutal.
She's feeling that. She's feeling it, and that's coming from the president of the United States. She's feeling that. She's feeling that. I would feel it. Damn, you think I look worse than this one that obviously looks like a man?
Yes.
Or bankrupt Alex Jones, who says some of the dumbest things and lost his entire fortune, as he should have. So he's now saying that was the right decision. Remember, I think that this could be quote with Barnes too, because Barnes and Beaver were heavy, backing Alex Jones. Now Trump is saying that, hey, they were right to give him $1 billion judgment, which I think was insane. But this is Trump.
I think he might have flipped on that. I don't know if he's always been supportive of Alex Jones's judgment, and I think he's just, I think he's hitting him directly. Now, people are actually posting, like Milo. It was funny. Milo's like, he sacrificed everything and he got the judgment because of Trump. And it's like, no.
Nah.
The Sandy Hook incident occurred during Obama, not Trump. They were after Alex Jones before Trump was president the first time. So don't try to roll things together there. That's a little bit of BS.
We got the bankrupt Ed lost his entire fortune, as he should have, for his horrendous attacks on the families of Sandy Hook shooting victims, ridiculously claiming it was a hoax. These so-called pundits are losers, straight up losers, and they always will be. Now, fake news CNN, which we just said, look at their wonderful poll. Now they're fake news again. The failing New York Times and all of the other radical left news organizations are hailing them and giving them positive press for the first time in their lives. That is true, because we see Barnes on CNN. We see Barnes on MSNBC. He's everywhere. Now, not to say it's not well-deserved,
well,
but
no, better
they
still,
are getting positive
Marjorie
press.
Taylor Greene, which he mentions
she's
here.
everywhere too.
She's on The View.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. And we've seen that pattern. Liz Cheney is a even better example, right? They hated Liz Cheney. They hated Dick Cheney even more. They wanted, the left and the mainstream press wanted Dick Cheney prosecuted as a war criminal, but yet Rachel Maddow is at his funeral. Now, come on.
Yeah.
You know damn well that is correct. That if you go against Trump, you're going to be loved by the mainstream. If you're an apostate, that would be the term for it. They love you. So he's right on that.
Well, so he goes on to say they're not MAGA, they're losers, just trying to latch onto MAGA. As president, I could get them on my side anytime I want to. But when they call, I don't return their calls because I'm too busy on world and country affairs. And after a few times, they go nasty. And after a few times, they go nasty, just like Marjorie Trader Brown. But I thought her name was Green.
Her name is Green, but he says Brown like she's shithead, essentially.
But I no longer care about that stuff. I only care about doing right for our country. MAGA is winning and strength in not allowing Iran to have nuclear weapons. MAGA is making America great again. And these people have no idea how to do that. But I do, because the United States is now the hottest country anywhere in the world. President Donald J. Trump. So, fake news, everything is good. Now, I do want to be honest with the crowd. I am not for the the war with Iran. I'm not sure exactly why we're even there. I don't know any of that stuff. But I think just looking at it from my point, trying to be more objective, I think Trump and the team had so much success early on with the decapitation regime change strategy that they tried to implement it in Iran. And I think that's where things kind of got caught up, because it just worked so well in Venezuela.
Some people call it a regime adjustment. Like Venezuela was not really a regime change because it's the whole damn,
regime is still in place. Yeah.
Yeah. You got one guy and you moved him. So I don't know. But anyway.
It's like removing the king. And then now the person who's there is taking orders from the president, right? Trump says, I run Venezuela. I'm telling them what to do. And matter of fact, he made the threat, right? He told the vice president, if you don't do what we say, you can be like Maduro, right? We'll get you like Maduro. So I think that,
and it worked.
Well, she's doing exactly what Trump says she needs to do to stay to keep her ass in power.
But that's only dealing with the United States. Does that mean that she has no other power over everything that happens in the country?
No, I think she does, but it has to come through, because she's not doing anything that Trump doesn't want her to do.
Well, hold on. He has a set of parameters, like we want this for the United States, right?
Correct.
Every other policy in Venezuela, I don't think the Trump administration gives a shit about. He only cares about what affects us directly. There's lots of things they cover. It's not that dissimilar to the Roman Empire, who would go in, conquer an area, and then whoever is like a chieftain or tribal leader or whatever, they'd be like, okay, you're now a mayor. So you serve under the empire, but you're still in charge of all your people down here.
But I don't want to make it seem like she's not a puppet, right? She's a puppet leader.
Only in the sense of
the president of the United States says she's a puppet leader, right? She has to do what we say. If she doesn't do what we say, we're going to. She can be removed. That was like his direct threat.
I understand that, but you're shortchanging the entirety of the role. I'm saying that there's a lot more to it. Just the same as the Roman Empire. A mayor is part of the empire, and they could have been removed, executed, or anything else, right? But that does not mean they did not have absolute power over their people.
Okay,
underneath them, and the country underneath them. So don't. I'm
agreeing with all that.
Clear on the what it is. It's not just here, look, you're a figurehead, and you just do what we say. Start talking now or whatever. No, they're still running the country.
Yeah. I think we're saying the same thing. Maduro is running the country, right? And telling all those other people in power to do, the police chief, whoever. They remove Maduro. Trump says, I'm the new Maduro. That I'm not saying he's up there doing the day-to-day stuff. He's telling the VP, you run the country as you guys have been running it, but we're going to take over these operations. But I'm
Yeah.
assuming if there's something like she says, we're going to cut oil off to, or we're going to send
That
oil to
affects
Cuba
us,
or something
yeah.
like that, then it's going to be like, no, I run stuff and blah, 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 blah. So I think in that instance, it's a puppet regime, but he kept the regime in place, which is smart because they know how to run everything there. They've been running it all this time. And if you just cut off the top and then you run it from your new position, then you ain't got to worry about the details because they're already taken care of. I think in Iran was able to put together protocols in place where if you did a decapitation, you still had this kind of splintered faction where everybody else is doing the same thing, where they plan for this type of decapitation.
Yeah, no, it was.
I don't think
absolutely
Venezuela
planned.
had a plan for the decapitation.
Oh no, unfortunately, the Ayatollah he was a student of history.
Yeah.
Everything was in place. You had, I forget how many is 19 or 31. I can't remember the number of independent operators, essentially with missiles, everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
With the standing orders from the supreme leader that if anything happens, you lose contact or anything else, it doesn't matter. Your orders are boom, you attack, you do this, you do this, and that.
Yeah.
They're all independent operators running around. So even and this is part of the struggle. Even if the current political government in Iran, whatever they are, the political leaders agree 100% and they say kumbaya and they're dancing together in Pakistan and in a Congo line, those people are still going to be potentially attacking. And it's not unheard of. After the Civil War here in the United States, there were still guerrilla bands and things like that were attacking. Nathan Bedford Forrest, I don't think, gave up for a little while. He was out there leading bands. So it is complex.
Yeah, I think the structure in Iran was I think the biggest, going back to the analogy of Venezuela, I think Venezuela was easy because there's a decapitation of the top, you take its place, and then on top of that, it's a more political economic system it's not a religious system where people are married to
that's
religion.
number one.
It's a more economic
family.
Yeah. So and people in Venezuela is already suffering. So it's like, what the hell? We'll try something new. So that's why you didn't have this huge issue. I think in Iran, you have this religious piece of it, and religion, martyrdom is something that to be a martyr is a good thing, to fight for the cause, to go down for the cause. And I think that's the difference here, because the people who are fighting are willing to lose their lives. I think
they have an
Venezuela,
apocalyptic vision.
Yeah,
it's literally written
Venezuela
into
is different
stuff that the world will end, and when it ends, and we see, Allah, we're going to be the show. It's very scary.
But I think the thing that's got us caught up with Iran is that the decapitation happened all at one time. The first bomb went and it killed the top 40 people in Iran, which was great. But and then it was kind of like, we bombed, we destroyed, now let's try to talk. And I think they didn't realize that Iran still had this kind of secondary level of because had this secondary order, and they had the Strait of Hormuz. If Iran did not have the Strait of Hormuz, we wouldn't be having a problem. But it's the fact that they can cut off, and they can't even really cut the Strait of Hormuz off in terms of Navy, because their Navy's been obliterated. Right. But it's the threat of bombing a ship, because don't forget, each one of those oil tankers are $100 million a piece, and then they have about $200 million worth of oil in it.
Well, the insurance won't let them go.
So the insurance risk is huge, because each one of those ships, are you sending a ship through there that could be bombed with $300 million worth of product and material? I don't think so. And then you ask, and I'm assuming if you're smart, you tell the Trump administration, well, sure, we'll send the ships through, but then you insure it through the United States government. And they're not going to do that. 10 ships is $1 billion.
It's obviously a giant risk, and it's a threat, and it could be everything from speedboats loaded with bombs to obviously the drone problem, and drones are cheap, and this is technology that we have to cope with. I'm of the mindset, like especially the drones, we're behind on that. We should be further ahead, and every drone in general has to have some sort of way to communicate or a signal, so they can be defeated. They can be taken down. You cut the communication, you can cut them, but apparently we're still catching up on that, or we haven't deployed the counter technology.
Well,
But
Ukraine actually
that's the
has it
problem.
because they've been fighting the drone problem for a while. So they had the technology, and because a drone is essentially a missile. It's a missile just put on a drone, right? It's a missile that you just fly instead of the intercontinental ballistic missiles. So and the problem is,
Well, it
they're
depends.
low tech. Yeah, because they're just low tech missiles that are just putting the drones in. They go and they blow up. Their
Well, they
warheads
also
are
have
on the
guns.
drone.
I mean, there's different things. Like we've seen literally somebody get shot or whatever. But yes, it again though, if you could somehow EMP them, I guarantee that they wouldn't do anything, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
but then I think you might have it, because then how do you get the EMP? Trump is dealing with mistakes made from the 70s. Iran, moon, and failed economic changes in the 70s, 60s, and 70s.
That could be, yeah.
The big change in industry. Yes. But I think if we think about what's going on now, the big issue is not, I think, the war itself. It's the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, because then you have the 20%, and that's why the stock market's going crazy and stuff like that. So I think right now, the number one mission for the United States is to go into, is to open up the Strait of Hormuz. That's like their number one thing now. I think
well, there's
everything
somebody
else is
who wants
secondary.
it more than us. There's other people who want it even more than we do.
Yeah, but I think
China.
I think everything else, nuclear, all that stuff, are secondary concerns now. That's why you have a ceasefire. The ceasefire was determined open the strait, and then we have a ceasefire. And it wasn't give us your nuclear stuff. We got a ceasefire. It was open the strait, because I think that's the most immediate issue. And I think as long as that strait is closed, or they have control of that strait, they have the cards. It's the ultimate Trump card without having a nuclear bomb. So how do you get it? Well, are we willing to put troops on the ground to secure that area and take could be massive losses, or to come to see that? Or are we willing to allow them to charge what they charge, $2 million a ship to go through now?
Which, by the way, is like $1 a barrel. It's really a nominal amount. I did not realize. I will lay something out.
Mm-hmm.
If we can, get control over whatever their nuclear materials are, and they stop attacking everybody around them and pretty much keep to themselves, and they want, I'm okay if they charge $1 a barrel. I'm okay actually if they collect some money from that and it helps them rebuild their society and they're not shooting at anyone. I'd be willing to let that compromise go through. What say you? Would you be willing, if you got the nuclear materials, okay, they're done, and you got them, there's inspections, whatever's happening, and you have control over that material, they're not building up an armament program, would you be okay with them charging a toll to help quote unquote rebuild their country, or whatever means or excuse they want to use? I'm probably okay with that. But I don't
know, because number one, we're talking about international waters, and Oman's on the other side of that. So do they get paid too? Because
they are. They're supposed to do it as a partnership.
Yeah, because I'd be like, hey, I want to get paid too. And then we're talking about what they said estimates range from $60 to $90 billion a year.
That's not that much, dude.
It's a lot for them. It's a lot for them,
Well, no, we were making 300 and some odd billion a year. Prior in 2011, they were making like over 300 billion a year on their oil. So,
but we're talking about that's on top of the oil. So they're going to still be selling their oil, but not every other barrel of oil they're going to be getting some. And I think it's less than a barrel, because it's $2 million a ship, and the ship carries like 100 million barrels of oil. So it's like 0.20 cents or something like that, which I think the market can definitely assume. But I would say, if you could get the deal where you get all the stuff and the nuclear stuff and you let them to charge, that I think would be acceptable.
And then maybe even put a window on it. Like,
if you don't get both of those, though,
5 years or 10 years.
Yeah, but if you don't get, if they get to keep nuclear and get the charge, which is happening now, I think that's a loss. I think that's a loss, and I think that's something that we got to kind of figure out. Like, how do we do it? Because right now they're just getting more money, but they actually have to spend it too. And I like your thing about 5 years. Let's rebuild your infrastructure. Let's do this. Let's do that. It's a ways of giving them some recompense for what's happened. But I think those are like the two no-goes. You gotta give me your nuclear, and you gotta open this up.
It lets them save some face, because a lot of this really comes down to too. The entire country has been built on death to America, destroy, end, destroy. Boy, it's hard to come back from that. It's hard to. you know, it's like, where do you compromise on that? So you kind of are letting them say, well, we got this. You know, you got to give them they got to be able to come home with something in it, however twisted that sounds. But
Yeah,
like in a negotiation, you've got to let them get some win, however it's nominal it is, to allow them to move forward. Otherwise, it's like, you know what, I'll just die first.
I also think too, we've given up some of the moral high ground, because like our biggest thing was death to America, death to Israel, Israel should be wiped off the map, blah, 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 blah. And I think Trump's rhetoric, and I think that was Tim Pool's or one of the other more reasonable conservatives. That was their argument, is that now that we've said we'll destroy your entire civilization, everybody will die tonight if. It seems to have lost us, because now they'll be using that as, hey, he says he's going to destroy our civilization. We say death to America. So it kind of equalizes it. But like I was telling you earlier, I think sometimes, like I always say, if you're in the streets and you're dealing with people who use a certain type of vernacular.
Yeah, this is after 2 hours of my arguing with you.
You have to use the vernacular that they're going to understand, that they are going to respect, right? So it may be very crass, it may be very, but it's something that is well known in that. So them saying death to America, we're going to kill everybody in America, blah, blah, blah. And you say, okay, we're going to kill everybody over there, blah, blah, blah. You're kind of speaking their language in that way. And I think the Megyn Kellys of the world are only seeing it as, we have to, you know, we shouldn't be using their type of language. Like we shouldn't get in the dirt with them. But I also think you got to speak to people at that level in terms they understand, right?
Well, we've been digging it,
and it's not been working. But I also will say this too, is that when you do speak in that type, I do think there's certain ways you can do it where you don't go across the line. I do think personally Trump crossed the line with that. I'll kill everybody, your whole civilization. But because sometimes it's not about the words, because if you have the big stick, which we do, and we could actually destroy the whole civilization, there's a way you can say it where, you know, there's going where it doesn't
no. The bullshit crime, nuance, Nate. There's no nuance. Let's go back to your street analogy.
That's what everybody's arguing.
Yeah, there's no nuance there. It's like, consider your audience. I guess that's the point. And
I think his audience was Iran.
To Megyn Kelly, he was talking to people who were willing to die.
Yes, he's talking to Iran, and he's saying, you guys are willing to die, but are you willing for everybody else to die? But I still think it's still, because whenever you say, I'm going to kill you, destroy your whole civilization, you know, and everybody will die tonight, unless whatever comes after unless is like the first part is the most important part. The unless is kind of, so, but again, like I keep saying, I do see both sides of it. I see one side saying, you know, you don't threaten to kill everybody's family and stuff like that. That itself is the crime. And then I see the other side is you got to speak to the terrorists in their own terms to get some success. So,
all right, well, let's take this super chat and we'll wrap on that. And I definitely want to hear in the comments below what people think. I'm sure we'll get both sides of that.
Oh yeah, people are like, no, Nate's making excuses for Trump, and then Nate's saying, but it just is what it is. You know, I think both sides are making a very credible argument. Megyn Kelly's moral argument, and I think Trump's practical argument, where I got to speak to these people like they in words they understand, and Megyn Kelly's argument, we have to speak with the moral authority, and I think those clash in this particular situation. But go ahead, let's read this.
Yeah, Islamic religious zealots care not for the lives of the civilians who follow Islam. They see them all as martyrs in waiting, whether they want to be one or not. That's true, but they also want to have success. So in the end, they do want caliphate, a lot of them. And if there's nobody there to succeed in caliphate, then, well, it's all a failure. So even if it's just that practicality of everything that you have worked for, everything you've established is gone now, maybe that'll bring them to the table. It's difficult. This is a difficult problem.
And it's the thing that you always say, war is a negotiation. It's a physical negotiation between two parties for political ends, right? I want to politically have this, you want politically, and war is after debate. So I think people have to also understand this whole thing is a negotiation to get favorable terms at the end. And how it all plays out, we just don't know. But that's what's happening right now. And I think one side is arguing the means to make that end. And that's what we're all arguing about, how we're getting to the end. Not what the end goals are, because we all have the same end goals, but it's kind of like One side's arguing we don't want to use these tactics to make it to the end, while the other side's saying these tactics are appropriate to make it to the end, and that's the battle.
All right. Well, again, see, and look at that. Nate and I aren't completely in alignment. We're not completely disagreeing on it, but two people could talk. They could disagree. We don't just automatically go on, oh, this is the thing that's going to get the most clicks.
Oh yeah,
these are our opinions, and
people are going to be angry at me because I said I'm against the war. But again, I totally understand if you're, and I think, but the problem is I think a lot of times we yell at each other. Like nobody understands. Like I understand Barnes' argument, but I think the tactic of him attacking people to make it makes it hard for people to then respond to him and try to understand his point. And I think the same thing with the other side too. So I think right now we want to understand. It's easier to try to understand and try to communicate versus yelling at each other. Right now, everybody's just screaming, yelling at each other.
Well, and that note, why don't all of you scream and yell at us in the comments, and it'll help get the word out. And you know what? If you like it, share this with somebody. I mean, we struggle so hard to get YouTube to spread these, shows out and everything else. And honestly, we're a little bit more nuanced than people who are like, oh, it's all bad. Oh, it's all good. Help us get the word out and comment below whatever you think. And until next time, see you soon.
Peace.